I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Oh, I'm back. And it feels fantastic to finally sit here at my house and do nothing. Oh, son of a... All right, fine. Take a seat, you little idiot. I was just saying about how I'm back from my trip, and I spent time at the Jersey Shore, where I got to stand in the water and get cold, then stand on the beach and get warm again, then go stand on the water and get cold, and did that for hours, and then went up to the boardwalk, where they just have tons of stores. It's kind of like going to Minnesota State Fair, and you just walk around eating greasy food, and looking at all the people wearing Trump shirts. And there's a lot of stores there that sell Trump shirts. It was really strange. A lot of them fantasizing or fetishizing Trump. A lot of like him with muscles that he doesn't have, being cooler than he is, trying to sexualize him. It's really, I'll never understand these people. Welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, we're going to finish reading Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Want to learn about the author? Sure, I just stole this from Wikipedia. It's the least you could do. Robert Louis Balfour Stevenson was born the 13th of November, 1850, and died the 3rd of December, 1894. He was a Scottish novelist, essayist, poet, and travel writer. He's best known for his works such as Treasure Island, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Kidnapped, A Child's Garden of Verses. Born and educated in Edinburgh, Stevenson suffered from a serious bronchial trouble for much of his life, but continued to write prolifically and travel widely in defiance of his poor health. He settled in Samoa, where, alarmed at the increasing European and American influence of the South Sea Islands, his writing turned from romance and adventure fiction toward a darker realism. He died of a stroke in his island home in 1894 at the age of 44. Want to hear some fun facts I stole from contentbash.com? Sure you do. Robert Louis Stevenson had a mysterious chest disease. He inherited a chest illness from his mother, who had also inherited it from her father. Is that really how that works? While the exact nature of his illness is unknown, it is described as a tendency to develop coughs and fevers, which are exacerbated in cold weather. Some believe it might have been bronchiectasis or sarcoidosis, but while others believe it might have been tuberculosis. Stevenson was very close to his nurse, Alison Cunningham, also known as Cummy, was Robert Louis Stevenson's nurse. She was extremely religious and a strong believer in folklore. Oh boy, she's just all over the place, which had a tremendous impact on him. Stevenson had nightmares and acquired an advanced sense of religion. Nevertheless, Cummy, as young Robert, was very fond of each other, and Stevenson dedicated A Child's Garden of Verses to her. The grandfather clock hasn't gone off yet to tell me to shut up, so the next one is he was a hipster. Instead of focusing on his education in Edinburgh Academy, Robert Stevenson developed more of his personality and became well-known for his unusual clothing and behavior. He was nicknamed Velvet Jacket because of his fashion choices, which frequently included a wide-brimmed hat with a velveteen coat. All right, well, that's it. Why don't we go down to the library? All right, turd. Why don't you get seated? I got to run through this as fast as possible before my kid comes over. We're going to hang out and play video games. Next chapter, The Treasure Hunt. Dash, the Voice Among the Trees. Partly from the dampening influence of this alarm, partly to rest Silver and the sick folk, the whole party sat down as soon as they had gained the brow of the ascent. The plateau being somewhat tilted towards the west, this spot at which he had paused commanded a wide prospect on either hand. Before us, with the treetops, we beheld the Cape of the Woods fringed with surf. Behind, we not only looked down upon the anchorage of the Skeleton Island, but saw clear across the spit and eastern lowlands. The great field of open sea upon the east. Sheer above us rose the spyglass. There, dotted with single pines. There, black with precipices. There was no sound but that of the distant breakers, mounted from all around, and the chirp of countless insects in the brush. Not a man, not a sail upon the sea. The very largeness of the view increased the sense of solitude. Silver, as he sat, took certain bearings with his compass. Burp, there are 3, quote, tall trees, unquote, he said, about in the right line from the Skeleton Island. Spyglass shoulder, I take it. It means a lower point there. It's child's play to find the stuff. Now, I have a mind to dine first. I don't feel sharp, growled Morgan, thinking of Flint. I think it were as done me. Well, my son, you praise your stars he's dead, said Silver. He were an ugly devil, cried the third pirate with a shudder. That's blue in the face, too. That was how the rum took him, added Mary. Blue, well, I reckon it was blue. That's a true word. Ever since they found the skeleton and got upon this train of thought, they had spoken lower and lower, and they had almost got to whispering by now, so that the sound of their talk hardly interrupted the silence of the wood. All of a sudden, out of the middle of the trees in front of us, a thin, high, trembling voice struck up the well-known air of the words, 50 men under men's chest. Yo, what about rum? I had never seen men more dreadfully affected than the pirates. The color went from their 6 faces, like enchantment. Some leapt to their feet. Some clawed hold of others. Morgan groveled on the ground. It's Flint by the longest M-dash I've ever seen in my entire life, ! Cried Mary. The song had stopped as suddenly as it began, broken off, as you would have said, in the middle of a note. As though someone had laid a hand upon the singer's mouth. Coming through the clear, sunny atmosphere among the green treetops, I thought it had sounded airily and sweetly. And the effect of my companions was the stranger. Come, said Silver, struggling with his ashen lips to get the word out. This won't do. Stand by and I go about. This is a rum start, and I can't name the voice, but it's someone skylarking. Someone that's flesh and blood, as you lay to that. His courage had come back as he spoke, and some of the color to his face along with it. Already the others had begun to lend an ear to this encouragement, and were coming a little to themselves, when the voice broke out again. Not this time singing, but in a faint distant hail that echoed yet fainter among the clefts of the spyglass. Darby McGraw, it wailed. For that is the word that best describes the sound. Darby McGraw, again and again, and then rising a little higher, and with that an oath that I leave out, fetch him off the rum, Darby. The buccaneers remained rooted to the ground. Their eyes starting from their heads. Long after the voice had died away, they still stared in silence dreadfully before them. That fixes it, gasped one. Let's go. They was his last words, moaned Morgan. His last words above board. Dick had his Bible out and was praying volubly. He had been well brought up, said Dick. Before he came to sea and fell among bad companions. Still, Silver was unconquered. He could hear his teeth rattle in his head, but not yet surrendered. Nobody in this here island ever heard of Darby, he muttered. Not one of us that's here. And then, making a great effort, shipmates, he cried, I'm here to get that stuff. And I'll not be beat by man or devil. I've never feared of Flint in his life, and by powers, I'll face him dead. There's 700,000 pounds, not a quarter of a mile from here. When did ever a gentleman owe fortune show his stern to that much dollars for a boozy old seaman with the blue mug? And him dead too? But there was no sign of reawakening courage in his followers, rather indeed of growing terror at the irreverence of his words. Belay there, John, said Mary. I touch across a spirit, that's Sperrit, and the rest were all too terrified to reply. They would have run away, severally, had they been dared, but fear kept them together and kept them close by John, as if his daring helped them. He, on his part, had pretty well fought his weakness down. Spirit? Well, maybe, he said, but there's one thing not clear to me. There was an echo. Now, no man ever seen a spirit with a shadow. Well, then, what's it doing with an echo to him? I should like to know. They ain't in nature, surely. This argument seemed weak enough to me, but you could never tell what would the effects superstitious to my wonder. George Mary was greatly relieved. Just the fact that you know there's other people on the island, other people that want to kill you. You hear voices in the woods you think might be the ones that want to kill us. They're just trying to fuck with us. Well, that's so, he said. You've a head upon your shoulders, John, make no mistake. About shipmates, here's a crew on the wrong track, I do believe. And come to think of it, it was like Flint's voice, I grant you. But not just so clear away like it. After all, it was a liker, that's an actual word, somebody else's voice now. It was liker. By the powers, Ben Gunn, roared Silver. Aye, and so it were, cried Morgan, springing to his knees. Ben Gunn it were. Won't it make much odds do it now? Asked Dick. Ben Gunn's not here in the body any more in Flint. But the older hands greeted this remark with scorn. Why, nobody minds Ben Gunn, cried Mary. Dead or alive, nobody minds him. It's extraordinary how their spirits returned and how the natural color had revived their faces. Soon they were chatting together, with intervals of listening, and not long after, hearing no further sound, they could shoulder the tools and set forth again. Mary walking first with Silver's compass to keep them on the right line with Skeleton Island. And he had said the truth, dead or alive, nobody minded Ben Gunn. Dick alone, still held his Bible and looked around him as he went with fearful glances, but he found no sympathy, and Silver even joked with him on his precautions. I told you, said he, I told you you'd spoilt your Bible. I screwed that up because it's S-P-apostrophe I-L-E-D. I don't know I'm just guessing. And if it ain't no good to swear by, what do you suppose is a spirit would give it? Not that. He snapped his big fingers, halting for a moment on his crutch. But Dick was not to be comforted. Indeed, it was soon plain to me that the lad was falling sick, hastened by heat, exhaustion, and the shock of his alarm. The fever, predicted by Dr. Livesey, was evidently growing swiftly higher. Now it was fine open walking here. Upon the summit, our way lay down a little hill. As for, I said, the plateau tilted toward the west, as if we're paying attention to those details. Token, J.R. Token writing, the pines, great and small, grew wide apart, and even between the clumps of nutmeg and azalea, wide open spaces baked in the hot sunshine. Striking as we did, pretty near northwest across the island, we drew in on one hand, even nearer under the shoulders of the spyglass, and on the other looked even ever wider over that western bay where I had once tossed and trembled in the corsicle. Don't care. First of all, I figured out how to say it chapters ago, but now I've forgotten. It's been weeks. First of all, the tall trees that we'd reach, by the bearings proved the wrong one. So with the second and the third rows, nearly 200 feet in the air above a clump of underwood, a giant of a vegetable with a red column as big as a cottage, and a wide shadow around which a company could be maneuvered. It was conspicuous far to the sea, both on the east and west, and might have been entered as a sailing mark upon the chart. But it was not its size that now impressed my companions. No, it was the knowledge that 700,000 pounds of gold lay somewhere buried below its spreading shadow. The thought of the money, as they drew nearer, swallowed up their previous terrors. Oh, their eyes burned in their heads, their feet grew speedier and lighter, their whole soul was found up in that fortune, a whole lifetime of extravagance and pleasure that lay waiting there for each of them. Silver hobbled, grunting on his crutch, and his nostrils stood out and quivered. He cursed like a madman when the flies settled on his hot and shiny countenance. Oh, he plucked furiously at the line that held me to him. And from time to time he turned his eyes upon me with a deadly look. Certainly he took no pains to hide his thoughts, and certainly I read them like print. Oh, the immediate nearness of the gold. All else had been forgotten. His promise and the doctor's warning were both things of the past, and I could not doubt that he hoped to seize upon the treasure, and find and board the Hispaniola under cover of night, cut every honest throat about the island, and sail away, as he had first intended, laden with crimes and riches. Shaken as I was with these alarms, it was hard for me to keep up with the rapid pace of the treasure hunters. Now and again I stumbled, and it was that Silver plucked so roughly at the rope and launched me into his murderous glances. Dick, who had dropped behind us and now brought up the rear, was babbling to himself both prayers and curses as his fever kept rising. Oh, this also added to my wretchedness, and to crown all, I was haunted by the thought of the tragedy that had once acted on this plateau, when that ungodly buccaneer with the blue face, who died at Savannah, singing and shouting for drink, had there, with his own hand, cut down his 6 accomplices. The grove, that was now so peaceful, must then have rung with cries, I thought, and even with the thought I could believe I heard it ringing still. We were now at the margin of the thicket. "Huzzah, mates, all together!" Shouted Mary, and the foremost broke into a run, and suddenly, not 10 yards further, we beheld them stop. Oh, a low cry arose, and Silver doubled his pace, digging away with the foot of his crutch like one possessed. And the next moment, he and I had come also to a dead halt. Before us was a great excavation. Oh, not very recent, for the sides had fallen in and the grass had sprouted on the bottom. And there was the shaft of a pick broken in two, and the boards of several panking cases strewed around. One of the boards I saw branded with a hot iron, the name Walrus, the name of Flint's ship. All was clear to probation. The cash had been found, why is cash in all caps, and rifled. The 700,000 pounds were gone. Next chapter, the fall of a chieftain. There was never was such an overturn in this world. Each of the 6 men was as though they had been struck. But with Silver, the blow passed almost instantly. Every thought of his soul had been set full stretch. Oh, like a racer. And on that money, well, he was brought up in a single second dead. And he kept his head, found his temper, and changed his plan before the others had time to realize disappointment. "Jim," he whispered, "take that and stand by for trouble." And he passed me his double-barreled pistol. At the same time, he began quietly moving northward, and in a few steps he had put the hollow between us 2 and the other 5. Then he looked at me and nodded, as much to say, "Here's a narrow corner," as indeed I thought it was. His looks were not quite friendly, and I was so revolted at these constant changes that I could not forbear whispering, "So you've changed sides again?" Well, there's no time left for him to answer in. The buccaneers, with oaths and cries, began to leap, one after another, into the pit and to dig with their fingers, throwing the boards aside as they did so. Morgan found a piece of gold. He held it up with a perfect spout of oaths. It was a 2 guinea piece. And it went from hand to hand among them for a quarter of a minute. 2 guineas, roared Mary, shaking it at Silver. That's your 700,000 pounds, is it? You're the man for bargains, ain't you? You're him that never bungled nothing, you wooden-headed lubber. Wooden-headed lubber. "Dig away, boys," said Silver with the coolest insolence. "You'll find some pig nuts. I should wonder. Pig nuts." "Pig nuts," repeated Mary in a scream. "Mates, do you hear that? I'll tell you now, that man there knew it all along. Look at the face of him. Oh, you'll see it wrote there." Mary," remarked Silver, "standing for Captain again, huh?" You pushing lad. To be sure." But this time everyone was entirely in Mary's favor. Oh, they began to scramble about the excavation, darting furious glances behind them. One thing I observed, which looked well for us, they all got out upon the opposite side of Silver. Well, there we stood, 2 on one side, 5 on the other, the pit between us, and nobody screwed up high enough to offer the first blow. Silver never moved. Oh, you watched him, very upright in his crotch, and he looked as cool as I ever saw him. Oh, he was brave, and make no mistake. At last, Mary seemed to think a speech might help matters. "Mates," says he, "there's 2 of them alone there. One that's, the old cripple that brought us all here and blundered us down to this. The other that's cub that I meant to have, the heart of. Now, mates," he was raising his arm in his voice, and plainly meant to lead a charge. But then, crack, crack, crack. All 3 musket shots flashed out of the thicket. Mary tumbled head foremost in the excavation. The man with the bandage spun round like a teetotum, whatever that is, and fell all his length upon his side. There he lay dead, but still twitching. And the other 3 turned and ran for it with all their might. Well, before you could wink, Long John had fired 2 barrels of a pistol into the struggling Mary, and as the man rolled up his eyes at him in his last agony, "George," said he, "I reckon I settled you." And at that moment, the doctor, Gray, and Ben Gunn joined us with smoking muskets, from amongst the nutmeg trees. "Forward," cried the doctor. "Double quick, my lads. We must head 'em off, the boats." And we set off at a great pace, sometimes plunging through the bushes to the chest. Oh, I tell you, but Silver was anxious to keep up with us. The work that man went through, leaping on his crutch till the muscles of his chest were fit to burst. Oh, the work no sound a man had ever equaled, and so thinks the doctor. As it was, he was already 30 yards behind us and on the verge of strangling when we reached the brow of the slope. "Doctor," he hailed, "see there, no hurry." Sure enough, there was no hurry, and in a more open part of the plateau, we could see the 3 survivors still running in the same direction as they had started, right for the mizzenmast hill, where we'd all been between them and the boats, and so we 4 sat down to breathe, while Long John, burp, mopping his face, came slowly up with us. Well, with that, I think that's probably a pretty good place to take a break. Why don't we take a moment to go down to my moistened basement, moist and humid, like the shores of the New Jersey, where we can learn about the latest upcoming books from Penguin Random House. Ah, there you are. Come on down. Take a seat in that folding chair underneath that naked light bulb, suspended dangerously over your head, as I stand under this naked light bulb and play my guitar for you. As you can see, you have a folding chair. We now have a little rug, a small coffee table, which I place some cigarettes, but you can't smoke in my basement, so don't smoke in my basement. And over there, for fun, I've added a futon, which in college we used to call it a scruton. But soon I'm going to get a little tube television, and we're going to have a real cool hangout spot down here. But in the meantime, I'll just let you know about Penguin Random House's latest book, Runnin' Hot. It's an Arcane Society novel by Jane Ann Krantz, part of the Arcane Society novel series. It's paranormal fiction, paranormal and fantasy romance, mystery and thriller, and women's fiction, just really covering a lot of bases. They're casting a wide net. Want to hear about this? Sure you do. Undercover and on the hunt for a killer, 2 gifted psychics. What? Take passion to a whole new level in this electrifying New York Times best-selling Arcane Society novel. Yeah, New York Times best-selling. If you have a category called Arcane Society novel, yes, you're going to be getting an award to the top of the list for New York Times best-selling. I hate their whole system. Luther Malone is an ex-cop who walks with a cane. Grace Rehnquist is a librarian who can read auras. Their only common link is the Arcane Society, the sacred and paranormal organization that has teamed up with them to find a killer. But even before they reach their hotel in Maui, that sounds fun, where they'll be posing as honeymooners. Oh, that sounds kind of dangerous, kind of sexy. Grace and Luther feel the electric charge between them. Oh, problem is, they need to remain vigilant day and night because operatives for the underground group Nightshade, that's the best name you can come up with, are pouring into the luxury resort like there's a convention. How can you imagine? And these criminals aren't just high-level sensitives. Oh, they've enhanced their talents with a potent and unpredictable drug. And as Grace knows all too well, you can't control your powers will control you. That's Running Hot by Jane Ann Krentz, part of an Arcane Society novel, apparently setting up a situation where you've just gotta have sex. Your hands are tied. You just gotta do it because all these operatives are watching you. You can get it as a paperback for $10.99, coming out June 25th from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's Target, and if you're looking to develop your psychic skills, perhaps this might be the way to do it. Through the thrilling adventure of trying to find a killer and being undercover. And then maybe you'll also become you'll learn how to become clairvoyant. You can find that at Walmart. Well, with that, why don't we go back to the library and finish reading this book. All right, take a seat. My kid's here, and I want to go hang out with him. We're going to watch Dr. Dishonest, Dr. Insult, I don't know, some YouTuber. Well, I don't know what kids watch anymore. I'm very old. Thank ye kindly, doctor, says he. You came in at about a nick, I guess, for me and Hawkins. Oh, and so does you, Ben Gunn, he added. Well, nice to see one, to be sure. I'm Ben Gunn, I am, replied the maroon, burp, wiggling like an eel in his embarrassment. And, he added after a long pause, how do, Mr. Silver? Pretty well, I thank ye, says you. Ben, murmured Silver, to think as you've done me. The doctor sent back Gray for one of the pickaxes, deserted in their flight by the mutineers, and when we proceeded leisurely downhill to where the boats were laying, related in a few words what had taken place. It was a story that profoundly interested Silver, and Ben Gunn, the half-idiot maroon, was the hero from beginning to end. Oh, Ben, in his long, lonely wanderings about the island, had found the skeleton. That it was he that had rifled it. He had found the treasure. He had dug it up. Oh, it was the haft of his pickaxe that lay broken in the excavation. He had carried it on his back in many weary journeys, from the foot of the tall pine to a cave that he had on the two-pointed hill at the northeast angle of the island. And there it had lain stored in safety since 2 months before the arrival of the all-caps Hispaniola. When the doctor had wormed his secret from him on the afternoon of the attack, and when the next morning he saw the anchorage deserted, he had gone to Silver, given him the chart, which was now useless, given him the stores, for Ben Gunn's cave was well supplied with goat's meat, salted by himself, given everything to get a chance of moving in safety in the stockade of the two-pointed hill, and there to be clear of malaria, and to keep a guard upon the money. As for you, Jim, he said, it went against my heart, but I did what I thought best for those who had stood by their duty, and that's D-U-T-Y. And if you're not one of those, whose fault was it? That morning, finding that I was to be involved in the horrid disappointment that he had prepared for the mutineers, he had run all the way to the cave, and leaving the squire to guard the captain, had taken Gray and the maroon and started making the diagonal across the island to be at the hand beside the pine. Soon, however, we saw that our party had the start of him, and Ben Gunn, being fleet of foot, had been dispatched in front to do his best alone. Then it occurred to him to work upon the superstitions of his former shipmates. Oh, he was so far successful that Gray and the doctor had come up and were already ambushed before the arrival of the treasure hunters. Ah, said Silver, it were fortunate for me that I had Hawkins here. You would have let old John be cut to bits and never given it a thought, Doctor. Not a thought, replied Dr. Livesey cheerily. And by this time, we had reached the gigs, whatever that is. The doctor, with his pickaxe, demolished one of them, and then we all got aboard the other and set out to go round by sea for the North Inlet. Oh, this was a run of 9 miles. Silver, who was already almost killed already with fatigue, was set to an oar, like the rest of us, and we were soon skimming swiftly over a smooth sea. Soon we passed out of the straits and doubled the southeast corner of the island, round which, 4 days ago, we had towed the all-caps Hispaniola. As we passed the two-pointed hill, we could see the black mouth of Ben Gunn's cave and a figure standing by it, leaning on a musket. Oh, it was the squire. We waved a handkerchief and gave him 3 cheers, in which the voice of Silver joined as heartily as Andy. 3 miles farther, just inside the mouth of North Inlet, we should meet the Hispaniola, cruising by herself. Oh, the last flood had lifted her, and there had been much wind or a strong tide current as the southern anchorage, and we should have never found her more or found her stranded beyond help. As it was, there was little amiss beyond the wreck of the mainsail. Another anchor was got ready and dropped in a fathom and a half of water. We all pulled round again to Rum Cove, the nearest point for Ben Gunn's treasure house, Oh, he's got a treasure house. That's what he's calling it now. And then Gray, single-handed, returned with the gig to the Hispaniola, where we used to pass the night on guard. A gentle slope ran up from the... we're doing some token describing now. A gentle slope ran up from the beach to the entrance to the cave, and at the top, the squire met us. Oh, it wasn't that bad. To me, he was cordial and kind, saying nothing of my escapade, either in the way of blame or praise. At Silver's polite salute, he was somewhat flushed. "John Silver," he said. "You're a prodigious villain, an impostor, a monstrous impostor, sir. I am told I am not to prosecute you. Well, then, I will not, but dead men, sir, hang about your neck like millstones." Thank you kindly, sir," replied Long John, again saluting. "I dare you to thank me," cried the squire. "I thought gross dereliction of my duty. Stand back." And thereupon we all entered the cave, and it was a large, airy place with a little spring and a pool of clear water, overhung with, ferns. The floor was sand. Before a big fire lay Captain Smollett in a far corner, only duskily flickered over by the blaze, and I beheld great heaps of coin and quadrilaterals built of bars of gold. That was Flint's treasure that we had come so far to seek, and that had cost already the lives of 17 men from the all-caps Hispaniola. Oh, how many it had cost in the amassing. What blood and sorrow. What good ships scuttled on the deep, and what brave men walking the plank blindfold. Oh, what shot of cannon. Oh, what shame and lies and cruelty. Perhaps no man alive could tell. Yet there were still 3 upon that island, Silver and old Morgan and Ben Gunn, who had each taken his share in these crimes. As each had hoped in vain to share in the reward. "Come here, Jim," cried the captain. "You good boy, huh, in my line? Jim, but I don't think you and me'll go to sea again. You're too much of a born favorite for me. Is that you, John Silver? What brings you here, man?" "Come back to my duty, sir," returned Silver. Said the captain. And that was all he said. "What a supper I had of it that night, huh? Oh, with all my friends around me," they're his friends. "And what a meal it was, with Ben Gunn's salted goat, burp, and some delicacies, and a bottle of old wine from the all-caps Hispaniola. Never, I am sure, were people gayer or happier. And there was Silver, sitting back almost out of the firelight. But eating heartily, prompting to spring forward when anything was wanted, even joining quietly in our laughter. The same bland, polite, obsequious seaman of the voyage out. I know of the word obsequious, but you know what? In this sense, I'm not exactly clear if I know what it means. Attentive to an excessive or servile degree. He was obsequious. This is turning into what many men claim is a fantasy. Of an adult nature, next chapter and last. The next morning, we fell early to work for the transportation of this great mass of gold near a mile by land to the beach, and thence 3 miles by boat to the Hispaniola was a considerable task for so small a number of workmen. Well, the 3 fellows, still abroad upon the island, did not greatly trouble us. A single sentry on the shoulder of the hill was sufficient to ensure us against any sudden onslaught. Oh, and we thought, besides, that they had more than enough of fighting. Therefore, the work was pushed on briskly. Gray and Ben Gunn came and went with the boat, while the rest, during their absences, piled treasure on the beach. Two of the bars, slung in a rope's end, made a good load for a grown man, one that he was glad to walk slowly with. For my part, as I was not much at use carrying, I was kept busy all day in the cave, packing the minted money into bread bags. It was a strange collection. Like Billy Bones, a hoard for the diversity of coinage, but so much larger and so much more varied that I ever think there was more pleasure in sorting them. English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, George's, and Louise's, doubloons, and double guineas, and moidors, and sequins. The pictures of all the kings of Europe for the last 100 years, strange oriental pieces stamped in with what looked like wisps of string or bits of spiderweb, round pieces and square pieces, pieces bored through the middle as if it were to wear them around your neck. Nearly every variety of money in the world must, I think, have found a place in that collection. And for number, I am sure that they are like autumn leaves, so that my back ached with stooping and my fingers were sorting them out. Day after day, this work went on. By every evening, a fortune had been stowed aboard, and there was another fortune waiting for the morrow, whatever, and all this time we heard nothing of the 3 surviving mutineers. At last, I think it was on the, 3rd night, the doctor and I were strolling on the shoulder of the hill where it overlooks the lowlands of the isle. Then, from out of the thick darkness below, the wind brought us a noise between shrieking and singing. It was only a snatch that reached our ears, followed by the former silence. Heaven forgive them, said the doctor. 'Tis the mutineers. All drunk, sir, struck in the voice of Silver from behind us. Silver, I should say, was allowed his entire liberty, and in spite of daily rebuffs, seemed to regard himself once more as quite a privileged and friendly dependent. Indeed, it was remarkable how well he bore these slights, and with that unwavering politeness he kept on trying to ingratiate himself with us all. Yet I think none treated him better than a dog. Unless it was Ben Gunn. I was still terribly afraid of the old quartermaster or myself, who I'd really something to thank him for, although for that matter I suppose I had reason to think even worse of him than anybody else, for I had seen him meditating on a fresh treachery upon the plateau. Accordingly, it was pretty gruffly that the doctor answered him. Drunk or raving, said he. Right you are, sir, replied Silver, and precious little odds which to you and me. I suppose you'd hardly ask me to call you a humane man, returned the doctor with a sneer, and so my feelings may surprise you, Master Silver, but if I were sure they were raving, as I am morally certain one at last of them is down with fever, I should leave this camp, at whatever risk to my own carcass, take them the assistance of my skill. Ask your pardon, sir, you'd be very wrong, quoth Silver. You would lose your precious life, and you may lay on that. I'm on your side now, hand and glove, and I should wish to see the party weakened, let alone yourself, seeing as I know now that I owes you. But these men down there, they couldn't keep their word. No, not supposing they wished to. And what's more, they couldn't believe you as you could. No, said the doctor. You're the man to keep your word. We know that. Really? You're just morons. Well, that was about the last news we had of the three pirates. Only once we heard a gunshot. Great way off. It's supposed then to be, hunting. The council was held, and it was decided that we must desert them on the island to the huge glee, whatever that's supposed to be. I'm not looking it up. I must say, of Ben Gunn, and with the strong approval of Gray. Well, we left a good stock of powder and shot, the bulk of the salt goat, a few medicines, and some other necessaries, tools, clothing, a spare sail, a fathom or two of rope, and by the particular desire of the doctor, a handsome present of tobacco. That was about our last doing on the island. Before that, we got the treasure stowed and had shipped enough water and the remainder of the goat meat in case any of distress. And at last, one fine morning, we weighed anchor, which was all that we could manage, and stood on the north inlet, the same colors flying that the captain had flown and fought under at the palisade. The three fellows must have been watching us closer than we thought, for as soon as we proved for coming through the narrows, we had to lie very near the southern point, and there we saw all three of them kneeling together on a spit of sand. I think to leave them in that wretched state, but we could not risk another mutiny, and to take them home for the gibbet, which would have been cruel sort of kindness. The doctor hailed them and told them of the stores that we had left, and where we were to find them. But they continued to call us by name and to appeal to us. For God's sake, to be merciful and not leave them to die in such a place. At last, seeing the ship still bore on her course, that was now swiftly drawing out of earshot, one of them, I not know which one it was, leapt to his feet with a hoarse cry, whipped his musket to his shoulder, and sent a shot whistling over Silver's head and through the mainsail. After that, we kept under cover of the bulwarks, and when next I looked out, they had disappeared from the spit, and the spit itself had almost melted out of sight in the growing distance. That was, at least, the end of that, and before noon, to my inexpressible joy, the highest rock of Treasure Island had sunk into the blue round of sea. Well, we were so short of men that everyone on board had to hear a hand. Only the captain, lying on a mattress in the stern and giving his orders, for though greatly recovered, he was still in want of quiet. We later head for the nearest port in Spanish America, and we could not risk the voyage home without a fresh hands, and as it was, with the baffling winds and a couple of fresh gales, we were all worn out before we reached it. It's just at sundown, when we cast anchor in a most beautiful landlocked gulf, we were immediately surrounded by shore boats full of... and that's the N-word, and Mexican Indians, and half-bloods selling fruits and vegetables, half-bloods, and offering to die for bits of money. The sight of so many good-humored faces, especially the blacks, the taste of the tropical fruits, and above all the lights began to shine in the town, made the most charming contrast of our dark, moody sojourn on the island. The doctor and squire, taking me along with them, went ashore to pass the early part of the night. Here they met the captain of an English man-o'-war, fell in a talk with him, and went on board his ship, and in short and so agreeable a time that the day was breaking when we came alongside the all-caps Hispaniola. Ben Gunn was on the deck alone, and as soon as we came on board, he began, with wonderful contortions, to make us a confession. Silver, was gone. The Maroon had connived at his escape in a shore boat some hours ago, and now he assured us that he had only done so to preserve our lives, which would certainly have been forfeit if that, quote, that man with the one leg had stayed aboard. But this is not all. The sea cook had not gone empty-handed. He had cut through a bulkhead unobserved and removed one of the sacks of coin, worth perhaps 300 or 400 guineas, to help him on a further wandering. Well, I think we're all pleased to be cheaply quit of him. To make a long story short, we got a few hands on board, made a good cruise home, and the Hispaniola in all caps, I hope that's the last time I have to read that, reached Bristol just as Mr. Blandley was beginning to think of fitting out her consort. 5 men, only those who had sailed to return with her. Quote, drink and the devil has done the rest, with a vengeance, although, to be sure, we are not quite so in bad with a case as that other ship as they sang about, with one man of her crew alive. What put to sea was 75. I'm not singing that. All of us had an ample share of the treasure and used it wisely or foolishly, according to our natures. Captain Smollett is now retired from sea. Gray not only saved his money, but being suddenly smit with the desire to rise, also studied his profession, and is now mate and part owner of a fine full-rigged ship. Married besides, and the father of a family, for as Ben Gunn, well, he got £1,000, which he spent or lost in 3 weeks, or to be more exact, in 19 days. For he was back begging on the 20th when he was given a lodge to keep, exactly as he had feared upon the island. And he still lives a great favorite, though something of a butt with the country boys and a notable singer in church on Sundays and Saints' days. So did he was given a lodge to keep, like he owns a lodge? Whatever. Of Silver we have heard no more. That formidable seafaring man with one leg has at last gone clean and out of my life. But I dare say, he has met with an old N-word woman. My God. And perhaps still lives in comfort with her and Captain Flint. It is to be hoped so, I suppose, for his chances of comfort in another world are very small. The bar silver and the arms still lie, for all I know, where Flint buried them, and certainly they shall lie there for me. Oxen and Wayne ropes would not bring me back again to that accursed island. Oh, and the worst dreams that I ever have are when I hear the surf booming about its coasts, or start upright in bed with the sharp voice of Captain Flint still ringing in my ears. Pieces of eight, pieces of eight. Well, that's the end of that claptrap. By my wig, why don't we go down to the smoking room and review what the hell we just read? Ah, well, there you are. That got real racist towards the end. Why don't you take a seat? And why don't you give yourself a cigarette from that baboon's skull with the removable crown? Go ahead, take one. Oh, son of a... Well, what do we learn in these final chapters of the book? In these final chapters, the author has finally cut it out with all the comparisons between the pirate and civilized life, and instead has moved on to making a connection between the hunt for gold and spirituality or superstition. We saw that with the start of the hunt being directed by an actual skeleton. Then they worried about ghosts when they heard the voice of the dead pirate in the woods. Suddenly, in desperation, they start praying on a Bible that they already said was defiled, while Silver was too obsessed with the treasure, kind of like Ahab and Moby Dick. Actually, there's probably some comparisons between the book with that one and this other one, whether it's gold or hunting for a whale, driving men insane. But I'm too lazy to look that up. I guess it's probably safe to say that there's, in both books, a lot of people died because of looking for whale or gold. It's on the sea, looking for whale or gold. And there's a protagonist that grows by the end of the story. And suffers PTSD. In this case, Jim keeps dreaming about that parrot screaming, "Pieces of eight." Actually, I don't remember if the parrot was still alive at the end of the book. I don't think they really mentioned if it's still on his shoulder or not. Anyways, sweet Jim doesn't seem interested in the gold at all. He thinks it's cool that all the denominations are from other countries, but beyond that, he doesn't even really mention his cut at the end of the book. He talks about how Tom Hanks, I think he opened up a shop and then, failed and just wound up begging on the street? Don't know. Silver disappeared with a bunch of it in the middle of the night, and that was only to wrap up the story about how nice it was for the Crazy Island Hanks to be back in society, where I guess he had a chance of success and failed. I don't really know what happened there. And how Silver will always be, burp, a charming little scamp. In fact, maybe the book likes to leave us with the notion that, to this day, Long John Silver is still out there, with his racistly referenced bride. He's out there somewhere, being way too chatty with little boys and trying to find ways to cheat people out of their money until he finally uses his gold to combine both his passions and open a string of Long John Silver's restaurants that serve a delicious array of breaded fish and fries. And if you're lucky, you'll catch him slipping his chubby little fingers into your wallet. When you see him, you say, what are you doing, Long John Silver? You stealing my money? And he'll wink, and he'll tap his little peg on the floor 3 times and disappear with your money. Which is something I'm going to probably try out because I just found out that we got one at the Mall of America here in Minnesota. So I'm going to drag my wife down there against her will. I don't think it's going to be like Bubba Gump's, which is also at the Mall of America, where they actually have like beer or anything so that if you just don't want to eat a bunch of fish that make your mouth tingle, you can just have something else. No, I think you're just stuck with fish, just various forms of fish, and a little man with chubby fingers stealing your money. Well, with that, thanks for listening. I'm going to go watch YouTube with my kid, and I will see you next week. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading a paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdlinger or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.